I used to think the idea of someone hiding under your bed was something only little kids worried about. But this happened 3 years ago when I was 21, and trust me, it made me realize adults should be afraid too. At the time, I lived in a small upstairs bedroom in a shared house with 2 roommates. The house was old, thin walls, creaky floorboards, drafty windows. But it was cheap, so none of us complained. One night, around 1 a.m., I was getting ready to sleep after a long study session. The house was completely quiet. My roommates were gone for the weekend, so I had the entire place to myself. I remember it clearly. I climbed into bed, pulled the blanket up, and turned off my lamp. The room dropped into darkness except for the faint glow of my phone charging. A few minutes passed, and then I heard it, breathing. Not mine. Not slow or calm. It sounded controlled, like someone was trying to breathe quietly but couldn't. My first thought was that it was coming from outside, maybe through the window. But the window was shut, and the breathing sounded too close. Way too close. I lifted my head slightly off the pillow and held my breath. The room went silent. Then it came again. A heavy exhale from under my bed. My chest tightened so hard I thought I would pass out. I didn't move. I didn't even blink. I just listened, every muscle locked. There it was again. A soft inhale, then a shaky exhale. Someone was under me, right below where I was laying. I wanted to jump out of bed, but my legs felt numb. I slowly reached for my phone, trying to stay silent. Before I could unlock it, something moved. The mattress shifted just the slightest bit, like someone brushed against the bed frame. That was enough. I rolled out of bed, sprinted into the hallway, and slammed the door behind me. I dialed 911 and whispered everything to the operator, shaking so hard I could barely talk. 2 patrol cars arrived in minutes. When they entered my room, I stayed behind them, watching from the doorway. One officer kneeled down and lifted the edge of the blanket hanging off my bed. He froze. Then he said quietly, "We've got someone." A man slowly crawled out. Pale skin, messy hair, wide eyes. He was holding a small kitchen knife. My kitchen knife. The officers tackled and cuffed him. Later, they told me this. He was a local homeless man who had broken into houses before. But this time, he didn't come to steal anything. He came to watch someone sleep. And they said something even worse. Based on the dust marks and the disturbed carpet fibers, he had been under there for hours, listening to me walk around, listening to me talk on the phone, listening to me breathe. Every night since then, even now at 24, I check under my bed before I sleep. And sometimes, I swear I still hear that quiet breathing. This happened when I was 17, and I still have nightmares about it. I lived with my mom in a small apartment complex. My room was tiny, barely enough space for a bed, a dresser, and a desk. The kind of room where the underside of the bed is the only place to store things. One night, around 12:30 a.m., I was lying in bed scrolling through my phone. The blinds were shut, the heater hummed quietly, and everything felt normal. Then, out of nowhere, I felt something touch my leg. It wasn't a bug. It wasn't the blanket moving. It felt like fingers, sliding up the underside of the mattress. I sat up immediately, heart pounding. The bed lifted a little. Just slightly. But enough to feel like someone underneath had pressed upward. My mind scrambled for an explanation. Maybe it was the heater vibrating? Maybe I imagined it? But then it happened again. A slow, deliberate push from beneath me, like someone was lifting the mattress with their shoulder. I jumped out of bed so fast I almost fell. The room was quiet, too quiet. I backed toward the door, but as I reached for the handle, something made a sound under the bed. The unmistakable sound of fabric rubbing against the carpet. Someone shifting their body. I ran to my mom's room and burst inside, yelling that someone was under my bed. She grabbed her phone and called the police while I stood there shaking. When the officers arrived, they searched my room. I waited in the hallway, staring at the open doorway. Suddenly one of the officers shouted, "Found him!" A man crawled out from under my bed, skinny, dirty, eyes wide open like he was drugged. He wasn't someone we knew. Wasn't someone from the building. He told the officers he had been living there for 2 days. 2 days. They found my half-eaten food in his pocket. And under my bed, they found a folded razor blade and a phone he had stolen from someone else. The officer later told me the scariest part. He wasn't hiding because he was scared. He was hiding because he was waiting. Waiting for the right moment to climb out. I slept in my mom's bed for months after that. And even now I never let anything big sit under my bed. Because if there's space big enough for someone to fit, there's space big enough for someone to wait. About a year ago, I moved into a small ground floor studio. It wasn't perfect, but it was cheap and close to work. The bed was pushed against the wall, and the space under it was open. No drawers, nothing blocking it. For the first couple weeks, nothing strange happened. But one morning, I noticed something odd. My shoes, which I always left beside the bed, were turned around, facing inward, toward the bed. I brushed it off, thinking maybe I kicked them in my sleep. But then it happened again the next morning. And again the next. Eventually, every night I started placing my shoes in different positions. Sideways, far from the bed, mismatched. Every morning, they were neatly aligned, toes pointed toward where I slept. So I set up a dumb little test. I placed a heavy hardcover book right beside the shoes. Next morning, shoes turned. Book moved. Something was wrong. I decided to check under the bed. Not even because I believed someone was under there. I just wanted reassurance. I lifted the edge of the blanket hanging down, and saw eyes. Wide, unblinking eyes staring straight back at me from the darkness. I screamed and fell backward. Whoever was under there scrambled violently, banging against the wooden frame, trying to get out the opposite side. I ran outside and called the police from my car, watching the apartment door the whole time to see if he came out. He never did. When officers arrived and searched, they found a man curled tightly against the wall under the bed. He was dirty, shaking, and holding a small kitchen fork he had sharpened into a point. He admitted he had been coming into my apartment for over a week, not to steal anything, but to watch me sleep. The police think he used an old spare key hidden under the outside breaker box, something left by a previous tenant. He told them he moved the shoes every night because he wanted to see if I would notice. To this day, I still dream about those eyes staring from the darkness. Because I know if I had waited one more night to check, I might not be here telling this story. And those were 3 disturbing true stories of strangers under your bed. Which story scared you the most? Comment below, and don't forget to subscribe for more true horror stories.